Today's podcast is sponsored by Grappa Restaurant, 22 Railroad Avenue, Warwick, New York. We have outdoor seating, indoor seating, upstairs bar, fantastic food and ambience. Come join us, Grappa Restaurant.
Hey, I'm back. I'm back. Hit the subscribe button. John Alite asks questions. Catch me on the run. Comment and let me know what you think. And if you want any other questions answered, and here we go again. Let's get at it. Um, I make my way, and my girl from Kenya, from Cuba, is going to go to Italy. And she's trying to get her papers. So she wants to get out. She's crying to me because she doesn't want to leave. And I said, "You got to go. uh, I'll come to Italy and I'll see you and just get your papers." She's going to marry somebody for papers, and she doesn't want to leave now. Now, she knew the person before she met me, but she was just staying with him for papers. And she discusses everything. And I said, "You need to make a better life for yourself and go there and I'll find you." And she was in Milan. So I had it on my mind. I got to get back to Milan to go see her. But before that, I decided uh, I'm going to have to make some changes on what I'm doing, and I need to pick up passports. I had to take a sip of coffee. So one of the things I left out is when I'm running, I'm going to cafes a lot, and I'm making connections with different people, and I meet in cafes, and especially in Europe, you have the Turkish espresso is very strong, and I said I have a connection through my partner Klaus that we talked about earlier, that they wanted me to rob at the casinos in Barcelona. And I went to see his partner, and his partner lived in downtown Barcelona, who hooks me up with a couple different people, but one especially where I'm going to get passports done. And I got to make my way to West Africa, Senegal, and I'm going to have passports. So now I have to go see a photographer, and I start doing. I changed my hair color. I bleached it. I put earrings in. I put different looks, and I had photographs taken. Then I went and I put dreadlocks in, and I had them corn rolled in when I was in Jamaica. And I went. I had my hair done. And I got really dark, dark, and I looked like I was from Jamaica or Cuba, but I was really tan, dark, and I took pictures like that. I cut my hair completely bald, which I've done in the past, and I took pictures like that. And I started getting photographs done so I can get different passports with those looks and different names. And I came up with stories that I was born Spanish because I didn't speak good enough. I was born in different countries, and I was raised in the States. I was raised, and they were coming up with different stories of why I didn't speak that well. Um, no different than, I guess, because I'm Albanian and I don't speak great Albanian. I understand it, but I don't speak fluently. So it's kind of the same, concept. And I got to make my way to West Africa. So I go to and I make my way back to the Cayman Islands, where I have gotten very close to Whitey and Ryan and his mother and father. And I have a safe, well, they have a safe on Cayman. And I'm talking about a 7 Mile island. And we lived across from the beach, and I left money there. So I started leaving money in different areas where I could trust the people I was leaving money with. So I left money in Cuba with Kenya's family. I left some money in a Canadian bank that I could transfer into Cuba. I have money now in the Cayman with Ryan's family and his girlfriend Whitey. I have money in Albania with my cousin Andri. And I'm starting to leave money, and I have apartments, and I'm set up now with an apartment in Argentina with the girl, but she has no idea that I'm there. And she knew I left something there, and she was a really nice person. And I didn't have any trust issues with her touching whatever I left there. And I asked her, "Is there a problem? Does anybody come in?" And she goes, no, there's locks on those doors. You can do it. You want to put another lock? You can. Nobody's really here, which I didn't do. And nobody ever touched anything. So I got the apartment set up in Argentina. Now I'm going to the Ivory Coast. And I have a couple friends there through mutual friends. And I make my way to the Ivory Coast. And that's where I start uh, making moves to get to Senegal. In Senegal, I have Klaus's connection with the equivalent of a state senator. And I go see him. And when you're walking into these unfamiliar areas, and Senegal, for the people that's ever been there, it's not, especially where I was, off the docks and the piers. There's not a lot of money there. And he takes me in the street, and I'm walking with him, and he brings me into a mosque. I mean, it's huge. And when the horn goes off, everybody's praying everywhere on the street, in restaurants, everybody kneels down. And so I come from a Muslim background. My family were born Muslims. Later on, I convert to Catholic. So it wasn't unfamiliar with me completely, the praying aspect and everybody. And I just looked over to him and I kept saying, am I safe where I'm at? As we're walking in the street, because you probably see one white person every 300 people. So he would smile, and he was like a state senator, that equivalent to that. And I says, because I've been all over the world and one of the dangerous places around, whether it's Colombia, Venezuela, Caracas, where I also was in Caracas during, and we'll get back to that. Chavez was during the riots, where I seen Chavez also out on the street. And it's incredible, some of the places. And yet, when I was here, I asked that question, but Senegal was probably the most friendly people after because I'm staying there a couple of weeks now, and I'm using the internets as usual because I'm sending messages to friends of mine, and I'm telling them in different countries to send messages as if they're me in those countries and my family. So Interpol is following uh, my emails. And my email back then was johnnyboxer160 at hotmail.com. And so I would use that, and I gave everybody my email. And they would use it as if they're me. And I told them to send messages home to cousins of mine, friends of mine, and family. And I would instruct them basically what to say for me, just brief messages of I'm at this country, that country, just so if Interpol's following, they don't know where I'm really at. I thought it would help a little. I didn't know how much it would help, depending on the information. I would keep my phone calls down to a bare minimum, and I was pretty strict with that. And I would call my father, and me and him already had an agreement about this because I was worried about, God forbid, I get killed or I'm somewhere else and I get locked up and they don't know where I'm at. So I didn't want to tell them. And we agreed that I wouldn't tell them. So if I'm in Senegal or if I'm in Venezuela, I might say I'm in Colombia anyway. So he understood that. So he would ask me, where are you? And I would tell him Argentina when I really wasn't there. And I said, you're going to have to wait till you get an email from somebody. And we would work it out. He says, in that email, my dad wasn't computer savvy like me. And I'd say I'm usually 2 countries removed from wherever that email says. So if that email says I'm in Venezuela, and then you have 2 more emails later on, that's the email, 2 emails back is really the country I'm at. And so he had an idea of where I was, but not fully. And I told him if something serious ever happens to me, the kid Ryan and Whitey will be the ones that will get in touch with somebody whose family were very, very religious. Uh, and on Sundays, I'd go there, we'd sit and we'd pray and we'd eat. And uh, they helped me to be more faith driven. And I owe them a lot over the years. I've always thought I lost touch with them over the years, but there's certain people you won't forget about for the things they did for you. And those guys, that family was, those people. And I hope Ryan and his girl are together, married, kids by now, and I hope they're okay. Um, but you run into some really good people while you're moving around that take you in, protect you, uh, and help you to survive. Because what it's one of the most difficult thing is when you're on the run is you can't trust your old friends, your old connections, because that's what's going to get you locked up. Because either they betray you, or their phones are being tapped, or they tell somebody else by accident, not realizing they're talking to somebody else, and that's the way you're going to get caught. So all your old habits have to end, and the more contact you have with your old contacts is the greater chance of being caught. So eventually, after we pray, we walk the streets, and he takes me to a place where he's got a ton of friends. And it was funny because when we're walking, we're talking about relationships, and he says, "I'm going to take you to my house." And he had a 3-story brick house. And he says to me, "I have several wives." So I said, "Oh man, I want to be Muslim like you." And he laughed. And I says, "How does that work?" He says, "Well, my first floor, I have my one wife. The second floor, I have my other wife with the other kids. And the third floor, I have my wife." And I says, "They got to be jealous, aren't they?" And he just smiled. I says, "You can't, guys can't take one woman. They drive them crazy. You got 3." And then I made some jokes about, can you, and he was comfortable with me. He didn't mind me joking. I says, "Can you take the one wife from the first floor and bring her to the third floor with you, like on a Wednesday?" And all years, he goes, "No, it doesn't work like that." I go, "That wouldn't be bad if you could do that." And he would just bounce up and down from floor to floor, with depending on the woman, and culturally they're used to it, and then that's that. I still said to him though, "But I don't care how used to they are. It's got to be still a jealousy factor somewhere, knowing that you're on the third floor when they're downstairs and they know what you're doing." And so we used to get into these heavy conversations, and again, you're bringing normalcy to your life. Even though I'm joking, I'm talking, I'm also very curious. I love cultures, so I was trying to understand the culture, and he brings me to where I can get my passports, and it was costing me 5,000 for the passports. And when I go there, at the time, it was George Bush. Prior to that, I think, or at that time, and nobody liked Bush because he made those statements about freedom fries and some craziness about freedom fries. And so when I first get there, the guy's yelling, because he didn't want to do the passports for me. And I'm like, "Hey, if I liked it there so much, I wouldn't be here trying to get passports for you. They're trying to give me a life sentence." So finally, after my friends going back and forth with him, he says, "Okay, I'll do the passports. I'll have them done for you," and whatever it was, a couple days or a week. And he does the passports for me. So now I start accumulating passports, and now I'm still scared to use them. When I do get the passports, there's some problems now with passports because I'm moving around, and I eventually end up with like 6, 7, 8 passports. I don't remember now, but I had a ton of passports. Some of them very good, some of them not good. I had 2 from Venezuela. I had these 3. That was 5. I had my real passport was 6. Oh yeah, I had 7. And I had the one from Albania, which is you can move around. I still don't understand that passport. It wasn't like an actual passport, but it's something where you can move around local countries, and there's stipulations on it. But I would use those if you're driving through the frontiers, the borders of these countries. And I would try it on weaker countries. So, in other words, when I was in Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Brazil, on that frontier, they all meet each other. For the people who don't know, and uh, there's the falls were Iguazu. It's called, and it's like our Niagara Falls, but more beautiful, and it's incredible. And there's bridges, and you can walk, and you can get closer than we can with the Niagara Falls. It's kind of dangerous, actually. It's got those bridges that shake, and you go all the way down. And I did all this stuff, even though I don't like heights, but I was like, screw it, I got to do it and walk across it and say I did it. And there's a lot of people walking on it. So that's another thing. You're looking at the rope, and it kind of looks flimsy. I'm saying, am I out of my mind doing this? I'm walking across this falls, and but it's incredible. So I would use some of these passports when I did things like that, just to test them to see. But the anxiety of giving these passports in, and the other part is, a lot of times I'm traveling, I got all the passports with me. So if you're going somewhere and I have a backpack on and a suitcase, and they want to go through it, they're going to find your passports. And then you're screwed if they didn't know anything about you. Now they do, because you're running around like, what's his name? Uh, Born Identity with all these passports. What's your excuse? You have no excuse. They're gonna call Interpol or the police, and they're gonna hold you because you got different passports with different pictures. So I'm trying to figure a way to get passports to different locations. But what happens if I need them? So if I need them, I want to be able to toss one or two and keep the other ones. And so it became a difficult situation. And I would try different things. You can't keep them on yourself, because if they're going to shake you down like they did on the train in Paris, they're going to strip you like they did. Or they went through my bags, actually. And they had no right to go through my bags. But what are you going to do? Oh, you got no right? You're going to deal with that later after they lock you up. So, when people say, well, they don't have a right. Yeah, they didn't have a right. So now what do I do after they lock you up for it? And then they hold you because there's warrants for murders and different things. So um, I started using different passports, and I would leave. I'd usually take one with a second. And like if you're on a train, like that occasion when I was on the train, I didn't show a passport actually. We bought the tickets cash in Amsterdam, and they never asked for a passport, because sometimes when you get on these trains, when you go across, for the people that would travel in Europe, when you first get on a train, these guys that work, not the conductor, whoever walks around and takes your tickets, they ask for your passport, they collect them, and then they keep them. I don't know if they run them. I don't know what they do. They pile them. They put them in the compartment where they're at, and I'm not sure if they're running them, and they give them back to you in the morning, and then they pass them back out. So I still to this day don't know what they actually do with them. Do they call them in? Do they register them? I'm not sure how that works. So I did give them, but I would take two. I'd give them a passport when I'm on the trains, when I was traveling from Europe and back and forth all over the place, which is a pretty cool way to travel in Europe compared to the States. Our infrastructure sucks compared to Europe's infrastructure. There's so many beautiful trains and dining cars and sleepers and food that compared to here, the fast train, we don't have anything here. It's really a joke, because our government's stealing too much money to put it into what they're supposed to be putting it into. Instead, they're getting themselves rich. But while I'm on these trains, and I give that passport, I'm thinking, all right, if something happens, I would leave the other passport somewhere in my cabin. So if they grab me or my bag, it's not in there. It's in the cabin somewhere. If they find it, I guess they're gonna find it. But it was better than keeping it on yourself and in your paperwork. And then I end up sending some of my passports to Albania. I had one in Cuba, and I started diversifying what I did, and I tried different ones. But when I flew major airlines, I was actually still using my own legit passport. And for the people that don't know, and I've said this somewhere else, there used to be, it's probably a lot more now. There's like 26 parts on a passport that they can identify if it's a fake passport. 26 parts. So they'll go through that passport. So if you got a bullshit passport, but where I got my passport was legit. I got my passport through, Senegal, which was a legit passport. So those 26 points are legitimately going to pass. The ones I got from Venezuela, I really wasn't sure, because I went through the girls to get them, how good they were, and what was on that, how many points on that was legit. So you can probably use those on the frontiers of these other countries. They don't really check. You walk through, they ask you, they look at you, they ask you what you're doing here, sightseeing. And the reason why Falls Lake Zoo is a good point to cross at, because of the falls. What are you doing here? Well, I'm running over Uruguay for the day shopping because I'm at the falls. I'm coming from Brazil. I'm coming from Argentina. I'm coming from Paraguay. You have excuses to be on the frontier. It's kind of like when you go to San Diego, Tijuana, and you go into Mexico. they don't break your chops. They just say, oh, where you going? I'm going here. I don't even know if they ask for a passport. I think it's just a license. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But either way, you're only going through if anybody ever did it. I did it years ago. You go through and they just stamp it. You come back and they don't really check you, harass you because it's tourism. And those are the ones that are easy to go to. When I was in Colombia and I was being driven through by the cartel into Venezuela, they got out and they have hooks and they just paid guys. They just told me sit in the car. They took my passport with them, but they didn't really do anything with it. They just seen him. I guess if somebody insisted, they would have showed it. Uh, and they paid him. So it was easier way to get through. But now that I'm in Senegal and I'm enjoying myself, I'm in Senegal probably about 3 weeks. And I stay in Senegal and I start meeting some people. And usually I was in the internet and I met this dark skinned black woman, short hair and very educated and tall. And we started talking and we had lunch. And she was joking with me and she asked me, what I was doing in Senegal. And that was the question, always by somebody. What are you doing here? Now, when she asked me this, I said, I'm visiting my good friend and I'm staying with him. So I had a good answer for her. And she did meet my friend. And, we had lunch and we stayed together. She was in town on business. I believe it was like, whatever, 10 days or 2 weeks. So we hung out a lot. And, we went sightseeing and she knew she had family there. And so, yeah, you make company, but everybody out of curiosity, not that, and if you don't have a real good answer, they know something's wrong. And if you start stumbling around why you're there, you got to make your answers just kind of short because if you elaborate, you're not going to remember. They're going to catch you in lies. And, like it's like when people tell me now, where someplace, if you're lying, they're going to know. Like I lived in, Batakia and people would ask you, where'd you go? There was only 2 malls in Batakia. So I'd go to the 2 malls. I'd go to Santa Marta. It was 2 hours one way and I go Cartagena the other way. These are beach areas. One's to the east, the other one's to the west or north or south, whatever. But there's two. So they know that you were really in these places. If they ask you about, Venezuela, where were you? I was in Caracas, I was in Valencia, I was in Santa Margarita on the beach. So they really know that you know your way around when you're in Spain, you're in Barcelona, and then you're in a town, a beach on the Marina Sitges, it's called. Actually, I filmed there, I did a 4-part series with Klaus called The Viking, The Downfall of a Drug Lord. It was number one for the people who didn't watch it. It's us playing ourselves, and it's a hybrid. And it's also A1 actors playing us. And a very successful 4-part series. So catch that. But so the people that are talking to us or talking to me and meeting me, they know that you know your way around. And, when I was in Brazil, I was there too long. So my answer there was, well, I'm in the gym every day. Everybody knows that. And says, I was a fighter. I'm working out. And I went through a bad divorce. So because of the bad divorce, I just took a hiatus and I came here. And I figured I'd stay here 6 months, enjoy Brazil for the beaches, the woman, the food. And it's a doable, very simple excuse for the people that are meeting you. And, I'm successful. I had money. So everybody's like, well, you have money already. So, well, why wouldn't they believe me? And, I kept it very short like that. Yeah, I went through a bad divorce. So I'm staying here, taking a little break, enjoying life. And, I'll go home next year. So I have money. So why not travel? And then I would talk about Brazil. I was in Curitiba. I was in Salvador. I was in Florianopolis. I was in Buzios. They know I know my way around. They know I starts picking up the language. I had a Brazilian girlfriend, girl Josie with Roses, the name, but they don't pronounce the R. And so they start understanding, well, this guy's a native, basically, because I'm there and I know my way around these cities and towns. And, so same thing when I was in the, Ivory Coast. I have a friend that's covering for me. So, where are you? I'm staying with this guy. And, so the people understand, like, well, the guy's here. when I was in Cayman Islands, I had a girlfriend, Debbie, from Jamaica. So I would take a boat over to the island from, and they used to, for people who don't know, they used to have races, boat races in Cayman and Jamaica. It was really popular. So I would get over there easily, and that wasn't a problem. So you start learning to move around uh, these areas because of the connections you have between everybody. And the biggest problem is again is the money. As long as you're not having a problem with money, and I had a nightclub called Moet's that later was called Mirage, and I was being fed with my money also through one of my partners that later on starts giving me trouble, and that's where you start getting on the phone too much. And that's where the threats come in. And I had a parking company that the FBI was investigating, along with my nightclub. So when that starts happening, you're in trouble because you're making millions of dollars. I was making crazy money. I lived on an estate, 15-acre estate with a 7-block driveway. I got money coming in from every loan shark money, drug money, sports business money, my legitimate businesses, my nightclubs, my parking companies, all making millions. But when they start having issues with them, that's when moving around from country to country isn't easy. And the indictments are coming down, and you're hearing about people flipping, cooperating by flipping against you and giving information, and they're secretly meeting the government, and you're getting because I have investigators work for me, and you're getting information that guys are disappearing out of the prison system. So obviously they're picking them up and they're bringing them to grand juries, and they're not going to do that for the expense unless they're already talking. So I started understanding these guys are leaving jails. They didn't go on vacation. So, they're talking. And this is where the problems start coming in. And you're trying to navigate through all this without using phones. And you want to threaten people that aren't giving you your money. But you got to be careful how you do it. And I'll leave it right there. And I'll see you guys next week. And I'll go into the next part with you. Ask me questions. I love to see the questions always because when I do the next series, I want to address what people are curious about and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, John Alite, and hit me up. Hit the subscribe button, the like button. See everybody. Have a great week. Was that great?